Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Regional Development Assessment Panel. I declare the meeting open at 9:33 and acknowledge that we're hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Woodjack people nation and are joined by people from other lands around the state. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. Meeting will be run in accordance with the RDAP standing orders and RDAP regulations 2011, and it is being recorded and live streamed on the RDAP website. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. My name is Clayton Hyam and I'm the presiding member for today's meeting. With me I have Dale Page, the deputy presiding member, and Tony Arias, the third specialist member. And online we have councillors Christy Della and Wayne Johnson from the City of Kalgoorlie, and later on we'll have Councillor McCleary and Councillor Shiano from the Shire of Capel. Have apologies from Councillor Martin Boyers from the Shire of Capel, Councillor Kieran Noonan from the Shire of Capel, and Councillor Terence Winner from the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. Minutes from previous meetings are available on the RDAP website. Moving to Part B of the agenda for the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, seeking any declarations of due consideration. Panel members need to have considered all the material and documentation within Part B of the agenda and Part B related information. Could I please have confirmation by show of hands that members have duly considered all the information? Thank you. Disclosures of interest. I have one disclosure of interest from Councillor Della, an impartiality interest, in that she participated in the prior council decision in accordance with her functions as a member of a local government. I now have approved her to sit and deliberate on this matter. Are there any other declarations or disclosures of interest? Councillor.
I'll do much the same. I was a sitting councillor when this item came up to council.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And Councillor McCleary, I'm same as Councillor Shiano, but I don't think either of the items have come before council because they're new.
Thanks, Councillor McCleary. We'll go through that again when we get to your item, so we can deal with that then. Thank you. Okay, so that's Councillor Johnson. Same, and I'm happy for you to sit and
thank you.
Right on the matter, Councillor. Moving on, there are no Form 1 applications. We have before us though Form 2 application. It is Lot 300, number 10, Gateacre Drive, Somerville, 4-storey hotel development. Have one presenter today, and that is Matthew Kane, who will be speaking in support of the development application. Matthew, you know the drill. There's 3 minutes for you, and we'll then move to questions once you've done your presentation. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, panel members online. Look, Matt Kane from Planning Solutions, acting on behalf of the proponent. As with my submitted deputation, certainly pleased to receive a supportive recommendation from the city. We don't oppose the condition modification for condition 18 or the condition relating to the freestanding sign. That's just a component to the previous approval. In terms of the application before you, to be honest, the amendments seek to reduce the scale and yield of the previously approved hotel, a 1-storey reduction, a 35 reduction in yield, some modest modification and expansion of sort of the guest lobby and amenity areas that have come about through the detailed design and more of an operational consideration. Fundamentally, these are all minor amendments. They don't substantially alter what's previously been approved. They don't change the land use. We're not seeking to modify anything that would change the application substantially. As per the city's RA, our client has already got a forward works application in. They're very keen to get on with this. The nature of the modifications before you in all respects, typically we would have liked to deal with it as an application directly with the local government, but I acknowledge that there are some sensitivities around accommodation land uses within the city that the city's officers felt this was better dealt with as a Form 2 application, and we were happy to oblige in that aspect. So I have nothing further to add. I just appreciate the DAP's consideration and acknowledgement of the report, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. Questions of the presenter? Councillors, do you have any questions?
No, not at this stage.
No? Yes, Member Dunn.
Yeah, Matthew, I have a couple. Could you just explain to me the reasoning for the design change for the removal of the balconies?
Yes, so the product that's being proposed in terms of the design form is actually a modular product, and from a constructability point of view, there wasn't really, like typically in a hotel, there's not really maybe one to 15 rooms, but the modular product that our client's looking to construct is prefabricated, internationally shipped over, and the design better suits no balconies. I think last time in the design as well, you didn't really gain much from a balcony. There's no substantive view. You've got noise from the adjoining roads. You've got a workforce accommodation camp and light industrial. So it's a client decision.
Thank you. And then just one other question. Could you just give me a little bit of detail about the 2 additional trees that are going to be removed, specifically their size and whether they have any existing landscape value?
The 2 trees, so part one of the trees is adjoining, if you refer to the plans, adjoining the Acrod Bay, the vehicle access, and also just directly to the south of that, there's a larger entry point for waste vehicles. It just wouldn't survive that. The other one is at the front of the building 1, and where we've now looked to accommodate more of like a porte cochere covered space. And again, once you actually do the detailed design work, the clients found that they simply just wouldn't be capable of retention, or they would be retained and likely die down the track given the excavation around those trees. But I think notwithstanding, there are still from memory 9 trees on site and circa 60 new trees. So ultimately a significant increase canopy from the trees.
Thank you.
Further questions? No? Okay, thank you for that. We'll move to the officers. We've got Paul Lees and Kevin Tang online there. Gents, did you want to make any brief comment? We've read the material. Otherwise, we'll go straight to questions.
Yeah, look, thank you, presiding member. The report obviously is clear. We support it. On the issue of landscaping, there is substantial landscaping proposed, and the remaining trees are quite prominent in that location. And I think the additional landscaping will augment what's been retained. So we're not unhappy with that.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the officers?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm curious about the new condition about the freestanding sign. So when I read the report, it appears not only does that sign fully comply with your signage policy, but in fact, the dimensions of the sign appear to be quite a bit smaller than the allowable dimensions. So therefore, I'm wondering if you put a condition on that sign, then isn't that unnecessarily restrictive in case the sign does, for whatever reason now or in the future, need to be a little bigger than the dimensions you're specifying in that condition? Because in future, if a bigger sign is put in place and still complies with your policy, I'm wondering why the condition.
Thank you. I'll just refer that one to Mr. Tang, if that's all right.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think the only reason that we put that condition was because on the plan submitted by the applicant, there was no elevation for the freestanding sign, and therefore we liaised with the applicant, and basically we felt that it's because on the site plan the sign's there, but then there's no elevation. So in order to provide certainty as to what the application involves, I felt that we need to put a condition to regulate the height and width of the sign.
Okay, so if you don't mind a follow-up question, if you get a proposal, let's say that the sign gets installed and it's slightly larger than that condition allows, but still complies with your policy, or 5 years from now, the sign needs to be replaced and it still meets the requirements of the policy, but it doesn't meet those dimensions, do you feel that that condition is unduly restrictive then?
Then, well, obviously, depending on whether the proposed changes will qualify for an exemption. If it does, then obviously they can go through to the building permit stage. Otherwise, it will need probably a minor amendment.
Okay, thank you. And then just lastly, in your view, the question that I posed to the applicant about the balconies, what's your view on the impact of the design quality of the building because of the removal of the balconies?
Right, member. Look, we agree with the applicant's representative. It's a noisy environment. The views into surrounding properties, particularly on that side of Gattaca Drive, aren't particularly attractive, and with views beyond the immediate properties into fairly large industrial and transport depots. So I think if they focus on internal amenity, that's probably a good thing. The other thing is, while we don't have any design standard as such in terms of the look and feel of the building, we were of the view when we reviewed it was that actually it's actually quite a attractive building in terms of the changes, so we don't have an issue with that.
Thank you.
The questions?
Yeah,
Just
briefly. The RA indicates that there were no submissions received. I do recall that when the original application was considered, there were quite a number of submissions. Just wanted, I guess, confirmation that that's the case. No, there are no submissions other than those government ones on the revised application.
Yes, we can confirm that only 2 submissions received from the government agencies. No submissions were received from the neighbours.
And panel member, we confirm that it was advertised consistent with the previous advertising.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Moving then on, no further questions. We'll move on to the item. Actually, before I do that, for the officers, we'll need to probably put an amendment in there to firstly accept it as a Form 2 application, and then move on to the approval. That's the way the panel wants to go. So in future, perhaps we'll just need to recognise or address the Form 2 and some justification that it is a Form 2 and for these reasons, and then move on to the actual approval and conditions. So I'm going to...
No, thank you. Thank you.
The published recommendation, and we can deal with that as an amendment. So I'm seeking a mover and a seconder for the published recommendation. Move for that. Page, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Johnson. Councillor Johnson, thank you.
Yes.
Member Page.
Thank you, presiding member. Look, firstly, I am satisfied that the changes proposed fall within the scope of a Form 2 application. And then I'm satisfied that the key changes proposed to the design reduce any impact of the building, specifically the reduction in height and the reduction in the number of rooms proposed. The other changes proposed are mostly minor and internal changes that have no impact on the external presentation of the building. I would have preferred retention of the balconies from a street presentation point of view, but I accept the justification provided by the applicant, and I acknowledge that removal of the balconies is not enough of a reason not to support this Form 2 application, so I will support that.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson as seconder.
Yes, just with that again, I was surprised about the balconies being taken away. I thought that was something that would exist there, but I again agree. With no further comments from the residents around this second time round, I'm quite happy with that as well. So hence an approval.
Okay, thank you. Further speakers?
Thank you, presiding member. I'll also be supporting the motion to approve. In terms of the proposed amendments, I do believe they fall within the purview of Form 2 application. I don't think they substantially change the nature of the development. The proposal, I think, is consistent with the approved land use. It's consistent with the hotel classification and appropriate in the tourism zone. I also think that the proposed amendments in terms of reducing bulk and scale is something that probably, based on the previous submissions, is something that the community would probably find favourable, and noting that there were no submissions to the proposed changes. So I'm happy to support the motion to approve.
Thank you. Councillor Della, did you wish to speak, or you're quite happy? Okay, thank you. Look, I too am happy to support the proposal. It largely is compliant with the planning framework, and as the RIR points out, the reduced number of rooms will reduce the impact of this development on the locality anyway, and I support the comments around the balconies. What I would like to do is to move an amendment to the recommendation so that it would read that the Regional Development Assessment Panel resolves to, and there'll be one, is to accept that the DAP application reference DAP 24/02710 as detailed on the DAP Form 2 receipt dated 15th of January 26 is appropriate for consideration in accordance with the Regulation 17 of the Planning and Development Assessment Panels, Regulations 2011, and then 2 be approve the rest of that first part of the recommendation, approve DAP application reference, etc. So I'm seeking thank you, Tony Arias, thank you very much. Is there any need for any discussion on that? No, okay, I'll put that amendment. All in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. So back to the mover who wind up the debate.
Thank you.
Nothing further. I'll put that recommendation or motion as amended. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you to Councillors Della and Johnson and the staff members for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In the meeting, welcome to Councillor McCleary and Councillor Shiano. Councillor Shiano, I believe you will need to leave the meeting by 11 o'clock, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And appreciations to the Executive Director for approving my ability to leave at 11.
That's fine, thank you. We'll try and deal with the matter as quickly as we can.
The clock.
I'm seeking declarations of due consideration for members. If you, by show of hands, that you have considered all the material in Part C. Thank you very much. Disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest? Did this matter go to a council meeting, councillors, or a briefing session, or anything?
No, I don't believe so. Neither.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of interest? No. Good, thank you. We move then to the first of the capital items. That's item 3.1, lot 1, Hare Place Boynup, extractive industry. Have a presenter in person here, Daniel Lewis from SLR Consulting. Daniel, you have 3 minutes to do your presentation.
Thank you. Are you able to pop the screen? Benefit of those online.
So you can either use the clicker or you can also just let me know. There's just a bit of a delay. Right, actually, if you just want to let me know when I can go to the next one, that'll work.
I'll do a big page turn. It will be
I'll keep an eye.
be quick. Thanks for the opportunity, members, to address you on item 3.1 of today's agenda. We act. So my name is Daniel Lewis, an associate at SLR, Water Development Advisory. We're acting here on behalf of BCP Group, civil operator in Southwest, and as previously stated, the existing landowner, Mr. Crawley, is online in attendance as well. Just turn. Just a quick, brief project overview. This one's been in the wings probably for the last 4 years. We've been working with the landowner, the Shire, and various agencies during this period. Put simply, it's a proposal over a predominantly degraded portion of land, which has a long history of farming. The proposal set forward in the recommendation from the Shire is a 10-year time-limited approval with extraction over 8 years. A couple of things just to note from the panel's perspective, and it's not referenced here on the image, but broadly within the locality is predominantly characterised by extractive industries, particularly around the significant geological supply in this locality. There's hard rock quarries in the locality, there's sand quarries in the locality. It is a significant area of resource, particularly that's needed for the Southwest. As stated on the presentation, the surrounding sensitive land uses are identified and they are clearly known, particularly to the west, to the northeast, and to the south. The uniqueness of this site when BCP were looking at it with the landowner is the existing native vegetation. When on site, and we went on site with the Shire during the assessment process, it's extremely difficult to actually see between. You essentially don't know that the dwellings are in location unless you go from an aerial perspective. And finally, just the final matter, I just wanted to make reference to Main Road's environmental offset associated with the Bunbury Outer Ring Road sits to the north, and it's part of a large continuous extent of vegetation. And within our documentation, you would have seen plans, I believe it's at page 359 of the agenda, which details the extent of a native vegetation clearing permit, which will follow following this. Predominantly, the quarry has been designed in such a way that it relates particularly to the completely degraded areas of the site, and we can chat about that later if there's further questions. Next page. Just very quickly, at a planning assessment level, it's zoned rural under GBRS. It's a rural land use, which is an A use, but of significance, and this sits under SPP 2.4, basic raw materials. It is a strategic basic raw material supply for sand, and we acknowledge the status that the state planning policy has in this regard. Notwithstanding, the application came in with a variety of management plans, and from our perspective, we believe that these management plans have comprehensively addressed a variety of different operational matters for the quarry. And from a planning assessment perspective, quarries don't normally get much credit for community benefit, but I'd just like to flag, particularly after the announcement that's just come out with fuel and a few other things, sand supply is a critical aspect to community development, particularly around residential development in the southwest. And as the panel will be well aware, with the price of diesel, the location of this site and proximity to Bunbury in particular plays a critical role in a cost supply continuum. And there is a direct relationship here to reducing costs for field for future residential. Next slide, please. So just quickly going through the management side of things, from an acoustic perspective, modelling has been done to show operations are completely 100% compliant with the noise regulations. There's a variety of small acoustic bunds depending on stages. That's been detailed in the acoustic report. And the Shire, in their recommendation, has also recommended a condition which requires the implementation of this acoustic report. Operationally, there's no reason that these bunds cannot be implemented. They're just small acoustic bunds per stage that get constructed. For example, in the northeast, stage 1 and 2, topsoil gets moved up in the bund during operations, then gets respread back over the stage. So as you can see, there's a lot of lines, but essentially every stage has been modelled to ensure that we're fully compliant with the noise regulations. Moving through operational haulage, this was one of the concerns that were raised by a number of residents, particularly on Capel Road. I'd like to thank the Shire engineering team who met with us on site and worked out what the detailed extent to which the upgrades are required for Capel Road. That the upgrades in order to allow haulage, and there's another condition limiting haulage speed to 40 k's an hour, particularly around Capel Road. That's a straight section of road, but there's photos in the application you would have seen. The condition of the gravel is not in the best condition for haulage. However, our applicants more than happy to upgrade that road, which not only provides opportunity for haulage, but also reduces the ongoing management costs for the Shire, particularly on this unsealed portion of road. Next slide. Groundwater management. Groundwater is always a matter that comes up in discussion. I'd just like to make a key observation on this site. Groundwater monitoring has taken place over two winter periods to pick up the winter peak. The first year correlated groundwater contours based on the longitudinal data from DWER ensured that the existing monitoring in year 1 had an extra 3.4 or 0.34 metres added to all the levels to determine the maximum groundwater level. And then the second groundwater year, which was last year, that we monitored and verified the levels. And essentially we've aligned it to the long-term monitoring. We verified the levels in the second year and it didn't exceed our correlated level. So essentially we got half a metre separation plus a risk factor of 0.34 plus half a metre. So we're effectively 0.8 from those year levels. But in order, I'm getting confused looks. Let me explain this again. Year 1 monitoring across the site was tied to the long-term DWER monitoring bore. The levels on site weren't adopted. Those levels were increased by 0.34 across the site because that's the correlation factor to determine what that level is. Then from that level, we've got a half a metre separation. So in essence, at a long-term monitoring perspective, we've got a 0.8 separation to the first year's monitoring and a 0.6 to the second year's monitoring. But all of that being said, this comes down to risk and interception of groundwater. And in our opinion, that's not a risk in this situation, particularly because all 5 bores on site will be in situ during operations and every winter they get monitored for ongoing compliance anyway. So we've got monthly data of that during operations. But also happy to answer any specific questions if they come up. And then finally, there were 2 modifications that we saw, and we've discussed this with the Shire officers prior to this meeting as well. Specifically condition 1, there just seems to be an inconsistency with the DAP regulations on the 2-year substantial commencement. Our preference is to just simply be a 10-year time limited approval. However, alternatively, if the DAP considers there has to be a substantial commencement period on this, would accept a full year as per the DAP regulations. And then just the second one, It's just the second modification that we're seeking for condition 10. This specifically relates to cleaning up this condition so it's more clear in how it's delivered. The traffic management plan that was included sought to limit speeds to 60 in discussions with the Shire and the applicant. It's better if we have it at 40 because it reduces the damage to the road during haulage. And that specifically relates to the unsealed portions of the Hare Place and Capel Road. So it's just cleaning up that condition. It essentially says the same thing, but it's just making. And then finally, I'd just like to thank the Shire officers for the approach they've taken, particularly with this application and coming out on site and meeting us on site and walking around the site and understanding what's all going on. And I recommend the recommendation for approval to the panel. I'm happy to answer any questions the panel may have.
Thank you. Questions of the presenter. Councillors, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Fire away.
In the external submissions from agencies, I noticed the Department of Health had a whole lot of conditions put in there. Have the proponent had a look at those and have any comment to make on that? Because basically they do not support, and they had a list of reasons in the process.
Through you, Presiding Member. Thank you, Councillor. Are you able to refer to a specific page in the agenda, just to make it clear which section you're referring to?
Page 690.
Sure. So the advice that's received from Department of Health specifically relates to the EPA's recommended separation distances between an industrial development and nearby sensitive receptors. Now, you'll note within the GS3 that it specifically refers to generic separation distances. It doesn't refer to site-specific management matters. In our opinion, specifically with the management plans that have been put in place, and we are referring specifically to an acoustic perspective, that modelling has been done to be fully compliant with the noise regulations. So essentially, noise is fully managed on site and is not considered a matter for which there is concern to nearby sensitive receptors. When it comes to dust is I can refer, I don't have the specific page in front of us, but dust in particular, within the action of the management plan specifically refers to no dust crossing the lot boundary. Now, this is critical because, there's other legislation from an environmental perspective which talks about dust impact on nearby sensitive receptors, but notwithstanding, the dust management plan specifically refers to no dust crossing the lot boundary and for all trucks exiting the site to be covered. So essentially, it's not uncovered loads with sand blowing everywhere. So what I would say is the two critical aspects for a sand quarry of this scale, being noise and dust, in our opinion, are completely managed either on site through acoustic bunding or a dust management plan. And the fact that we have a water cut on site permanently during operations in summer to ensure dust is managed on site. We don't believe that the generic separation distances, the generic recommended separation distances in this instance are appropriate because of the management plans that are being put in place.
Other questions?
No.
No, okay. Questions from other panel members?
One very quick one, if you don't mind. So condition 12 requires that no major repairs or maintenance is done on site. Do you have understanding and agreement with the Shire about what they mean by major repairs and maintenance?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Generally, this condition refers to essentially breaking down equipment, as in if there's a small changing a tire, whatever, there's no potential for spill. But any maintenance which requires dropping oil or any major maintenance that would require a potential spill or discharge into the environment is captured by this condition. Generally what happens is, in an operational sense, you've got a service truck that goes around, which also has a spill, like a fuel spill kit and oil spill kit on site. So it's all, Department of Mines regulate this in a lot of detail. Essentially, all the quarries need to align with what BHP are doing up in the Pilbara. So yeah, we don't see issue with this condition. It will operate perfectly fine.
Further question. Daniel, just referring to condition 5, and it says as agreed in writing that date. But what I've read is that's only it's a site meeting summary provided by the Shire officers, and I couldn't see any agreement to that.
So my understanding, let me pull up the page. I believe it's appendix 11 that got attached to this.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just pulling. And point 2, so for those who are following in the 1,000-page agenda, it's page 836. Point 2, it specifically refers to SLK, so distances from the start of Capel Road to the end of Capel Road. And the agreement, this is essentially the scope of works that was agreed at the time of the site visit that needs to be done as a prior to commencement.
It's not coming across as an agreement, it's just a summary of a meeting.
So I'm not sure I followed. Like, is your preference to pull? What we didn't do is we didn't pull this into include all of this works as a condition. We just prefer to refer to them.
I'm quite happy, but I guess it might be, and I'll talk to the officers, plus the officers, but it might be better to, because it doesn't say it's agreed, but it might be better to say, refer to that to be undertaken in accordance with that.
We'd be open to that. Look, big picture. Essentially, the engineering staff and our client met on site, and we understand the scope that needs to be done. We've had an instance before where the scope wasn't clear and it created a little bit of ambiguity. So if the panel and the Shire felt that this could be better worded, we're open to that.
All right, and then conditions 6 through to 9. It's all related to the extractive industry licence and references to Welga and those sorts of things. Are you satisfied that they are planning conditions? Basis is a planning basis. Is it coming out of another area?
So I'm happy to walk. So you said 6 through 9. The condition 6, starting with the Welga Road. I know this has been raised before. From our perspective, whether condition 6 is included as a condition or whether it's not included as a condition, from our perspective, it doesn't change because we'll still comply. So if the panel saw fit for it to be removed, we'd accept that. If the panel saw fit to keep it included, it doesn't matter from our perspective. We're still entering into a road deterioration co-contribution. So that's fine.
I think they're all in the same sort of boat in a way. There's some.
Well, probably not the approved pit. I'd say condition 7, particularly on the approved pit boundary, does have a planning basis. Given you've got a mark where you're going to quarry, like that's a clear line. The rehabilitation bond is dealt with under this schedule of fees and charges. Arguably that's a bonding requirement, so that can stay in. And then
but bonding under the scheme or under other legislation?
I'd have to see where it sits. It obviously doesn't sit under the planning development schedule of fees, right? So I take the point. And then 9, I'd say 9 is still a planning matter as it relates specifically to the dust management plan, and you'd want confidence that you've got allocation of groundwater on site to implement the dust management plan.
Ask a quick follow-up on that. So I was actually going to pose these questions to the Shire, but given we're having the conversation, who issues the extractive industry license?
Council. There's no delegation. So procedurally in the Shire of Capel, this DAP decision is made. The application was made with a license form. Following this, the operator essentially completes the prior to commencement conditions. This all then gets bundled up in a package to a council. Council then makes a determination whether they grant or otherwise a license.
Okay, so I've been trying to understand, usually conditions are cleared ahead of issue of a building permit or commencement of works or occupancy. So in this instance, the extractive industry license that gets formally considered by council is the trigger for clearing these conditions by the city officers. Correct?
Yeah, so procedurally, we work with the Shire to make sure that all of these are cleared. Report goes up to council with a recommendation, and on receipt of the license, operations can commence, except condition 5, which is specifically refers to prior to haulage.
Okay, thank you.
And then moving to condition 10, which is the limiting the speed to 40 kilometres per hour. How can that, well, how do you monitor that? And how can you do that on a public road when there is a speed limit already on the public road?
Yeah, so the problem with the public road is it's unlisted. So essentially so our client also owns a traffic management business. So what will happen as part of the traffic management plan with operations is that anything that lasts over 3 months will have dedicated signage on the road. So our client will install signage on the road to basically state haulage. This section of road, there's a traffic management plan. All trucks are advised that this section of road is 40 k's an hour. Compliance, there's a sign on the front of the quarry basically saying any complaints or any issue of non-compliance to call the site operator for it to be rectified within 24 hours. Notwithstanding that, they can always call the Shire. But it's in our client's interest that their trucks operate at 40 k's an hour. Otherwise, the quicker you go, the more damage you do. That's what happens with an unsealed road. So
I think the question was more about jurisdiction on a public road. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Yes.
Perhaps a couple of clarifications. Your reference to condition 1, I don't think you're suggesting that the condition be modified so we remove reference to substantially commence. I think it's just the 2-year term you're referring to, correct?
there's probably 2 parts. First part is my preference would be for it to end in the first sentence, like tenure approval. However, the DAP and the Shire go, no, we want a substantial commencement aspect in there. Then I'd advocate to defer to the DAP.
Yeah, well, I think it's necessary. Otherwise, it's an open-ended approval, which would be very unusual. So there needs to be a term for substantial commencement, and then the issue of the approval period is a separate matter. I don't think there's an argument about whether it's a 10-year term. I think just that clarification. The other question was around, I think it's condition 14, which refers to the compliance with, let me just double check that. And I just wanted to, sorry, it wasn't condition 14, separate matter. The requirement for the bund, noise bund, is obviously an integral part of this proposal. Is that shown on the plans, or is it a recommendation of the noise assessment report?
So make sure
And perhaps there's the Shire's office can clarify when we get to questions.
Yeah, so the funds are shown on the excavation works plan, which is a stamp plan.
Yep.
And then the second part of your question is around what condition ensures its implementation, and I believe it's condition Condition 22, the noise management plan being implemented to the satisfaction of the Shire.
But my question was around the BUD. It's actually part of the operational plans that have been submitted? They are, okay.
Can I just ask a follow-up on the noise management plan? Again, I was going to ask the Shire, but we're on the subject. So condition 22 requires implementation of the noise management plan. So by this, do we mean the noise management recommendations in the acoustic report, or is there a separate noise management plan? Because I don't see a noise management plan in the documentation.
So in what's being referred to is the acoustic report and the recommended actions within the acoustic report, which are referenced on the DA plans.
Further questions? No. Thanks, Daniel. We'll move on to the officers. Oh, just before I do that, I just want to make a note here that Michael Titchman from the Capel Land Care, formerly LCDC, had put in a written deputation, which we've all declared that we have more familiar with that material. So just to note that. We've got Kyle Jackson. Sorry, we had others online, I beg your pardon. So we're going to move to the officers now, Louise Hughes and Isabel Fry from the Shire of Capel. Welcome. And are there any particular comments you want to make, perhaps in relation to some of the questions that have been asked, or are you happy just to go straight to questions, Louise?
No, happy to go straight to questions.
Okay, then, all right. Panel members, are there questions of the officers? Yes.
Yes, I have a few, Louise, and I'll try and move them through them pretty quickly. So just looking at condition 1. So that condition, the way it's worded, seems to blend the validity period and a time limited approval. There is a separate condition relating to a time limited approval. So I'm just curious as to what the intent of that condition is. Should that relate to the validity period only? Condition 1.
Bear with me, I'm just reading. Sorry, could you ask the question again?
So in relation to condition 1, it seems to blend the validity period for commencement of works and a time limited approval. To me, it looks like time limited approval is already dealt with via condition 3. So should condition 1 just be your stock standard validity period for commencement of the DA or of the approval?
Yes, okay. I think the original intent was to ensure that there was a period of time at the end of an extractive industry approval whereby rehabilitation could occur to ensure that the difference between the 8 years and the 10 years wasn't the 2-year commencement. It was to ensure that extraction only took place for a period of 8 years, to ensure that if extraction had been completed, which doesn't often happen, usually there is a subsequent request for a fresh approval due to the volumes of material available. So this is likely to run on for a longer period of time. But the theory behind that, the way that that's been written, was so that if it's granted for a period of 10 years, extraction only occurs for 8 years, so that there's the opportunity for rehabilitation to take place during the life of the approval. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
But it doesn't make sense to me in terms of how condition 1 is worded, but I'll deal with that through debate. Can I just take you to condition 4? It's an unusual condition. It's worded like an advice note. Should this rather be an advice note?
I have applied that consistent with earlier decisions that have come that have been issued.
Okay.
I don't know the origination of it, to be honest.
Okay. And then condition 11 requires a rehabilitation and monitoring plan prior to commencement of development. So I'm curious as to why you have chosen that trigger instead of the license as a trigger like the other conditions. Because how will you ensure that that condition is met before they start works? Unless you have a gate that they need to, you need to make sure they've dealt with that before you allow them to pass through the gate. Shouldn't the license shouldn't it be the same as the other conditions?
Prior to commencement.
So shouldn't condition 11 read prior to the issue of a license, the plan needs to be submitted for approval?
Yeah, I guess from a timing perspective, I think it potentially makes it a bit tighter for the applicant if it's prior to the issue of an extractive industry license.
Okay. Then condition 14 requires that any interception of the water table needs to be reported to the Shire within 48 hours. But the next item on this agenda includes a condition requiring that same action within 24 hours. So I'm curious as to why the timeframes of the conditions are different, and did you want there to be consistency between the two? What is your preference, 24 or 48 hours?
Oh, consistency is definitely preferable, and my apologies for not picking that up.
What's your preference, 24 or 48 hours?
I think 24 is preferable.
Okay. And then in your report, you refer to a condition requiring implementation of the dust management plan, but I don't see such a condition. Is requirement for implementation of the dust management plan covered by a different condition, or do we need to insert an additional condition?
I'd be grateful if you could insert it, please.
Okay. And then on page 10 of the report, it deals with the vegetation management that's required to ensure that the haulage routes are safe. And I'm just curious as to how you would monitor and enforce that that's being done.
I'm really sorry, the signal dropped out a moment and I didn't hear what you said.
That's okay. Page 10 of the report talks about vegetation management as one of the actions that you will use to ensure the safety of the haulage route. I'm just wondering how you would monitor and enforce whether that vegetation management is happening as it needs to.
So my understanding is that there may be some minor trimming that needs to occur as part of the making the haulage route suitable. So that my understanding is it's something that occurs at the beginning of the process.
Okay. But doesn't that, because trees grow, so it obviously needs to be dealt with fairly regularly. How will you ensure that that does get done so that the route stays safe? Will you be checking it regularly or on an annual basis, or?
There are inspections undertaken through the license process, yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Member Harris.
Thank you. I have some sort of questions around the recommended advice notes. If we could start perhaps with advice note 1. It reads as a condition because it talks about a prohibition, and I'm curious why it's drafted that way rather than in the same way advice note 3 is, where you're advising the proponent of obligations. So it actually reads as an advice note. Is there a particular reason why you've drafted advice note 1 in that restricted manner?
The source of that advice note is from Department of Water and Environmental Regulation. So it was one of the comments that came back on their submission.
Okay. But the intent of that is, I presume, to advise the proponent of obligations under other legislation.
Correct.
Other than actually prohibiting something, because I'm not quite sure what the accuracy and whether this panel can actually say that. So just foreshadowing potentially if the application supported properly, I would suggest a change to that. The other comment relates to advice note 2, which is definitely reads as a condition, and I'm trying to understand why you have recommended that when condition 14 provides a lot more detail about the excavation level and relationship to groundwater. Is there a reason why advice notes 2 actually required?
Again, the recommendation for that came from the Department of Water, and I agree. I had covered it in the separate condition, so I don't disagree with you that it is potentially.
Yeah, I think given it's suggested as advice note, it's pretty clearly set out as a condition. And finally, advice note 4, which makes reference to noise bunds. As I clarified with the applicant, it's actually part of the plans, and there's a condition that requires compliance with the noise report. Is that advisory note necessary, given there's a specific condition around that and the noise bunds are actually shown on the application plans?
No, I think that the condition does adequately cover implementation.
Yeah. Okay. Presiding member, I think from my perspective, that's all.
Okay. Just going back to a couple of questions I did ask the applicant around the putting a speed limit on a public road, which has already got a speed, well, there's a nominal speed limit, I presume, because if it's an unlisted road, it'd be 110 kilometres per hour, I presume. So how is that possible for another authority to, or through another, through a license agreement to put a speed limit on a public road?
The intent from the discussions, the intent wasn't to put a speed limit on the road. That was something that was very clearly articulated between both officers and the applicant. It was more to provide clarity to the haulage operators that was a requirement upon them, so for the reasons that Daniel Lewis has already given. So
if they didn't stick to that, there's nothing that can be done other than, I don't know, someone catching them somehow. I don't know how you would monitor that.
Yeah, so I think some of the concerns that came out from the public submissions were around the suitability of the road, and the applicant was very generous in coming down and actually meeting with us on site so that we could have those conversations and address all of the concerns from the submitters. And speed was obviously one of them. So the mechanisms that have been put in place are to ensure that if one of the other road users, because it's a very localized road, it only goes to specific properties. If some of those people had an interaction with one of the haulage vehicles, they've got an avenue available to them to bring that to the attention of the hauler and it can be required that they maintain that 40 kilometre, the trucks, I mean, for the safety of the local road users.
Yeah, so it's almost an honour process to monitor.
You could come like it because it's a the thinking was because it's a condition under P&D. The thinking was if you're breaking a condition, there is prosecution avenue in case not.
You'd have to catch the person. You'd have to have the reading on a radar gun or whatever.
Similar to dust. I mean, if dust crossed the boundary, you'd have evidence too. So,
all right, thank you for that. I've got no further questions. We'll move to the item. There's a recommendation for approval with a number of conditions and advice notes. Is there a mover for the recommendation as published? Yes. Member Page, thank you. This is a seconder for that. Member Arias, thank you. Member Page.
Thank you, presiding member. I will support the recommendation for approval, but before I talk further through the substantive, I would like to move a few amendments to the recommended condition. The first amendment is to condition 1, to change the validity period to 4 years. And I will foreshadow that I then seek to amend condition 3 to deal with the issue of the time restricted approval to 10 years. So if I deal with condition 1 now, it's really to amend condition 1 to read, this decision constitutes planning approval only and is valid for a period of 4 years from the date of approval. If the subject development is not substantially commenced within this period, the approval shall lapse and be of no further effect. And then the second paragraph. And I'll talk to my reasoning.
Sorry, can we get this decision constitutes planning approval only and is valid
for a period of 4 years from the date of approval. If the subject development is not substantially commenced, blah, blah.
Okay. All right. Just seconder for that. Is there a second?
Thank you. Look, the reason is the current wording of the condition is confusing. It appears to merge a validity period with a time-limited approval. I understand that the Shire understands what that means and the applicant, but it's not a normal condition and might be misinterpreted if anyone else was to challenge that condition. So, as I said, I would rather this condition deal with the validity period of 4 years, which aligns with the practice of most other local governments and the RDAP regulations. And then separately, I will seek to move an amendment to condition 3, which already, in a sense, deals with time-limited approval, and just to add to that, to make the overall time limitation a period of 4 years. I'll deal with that separately.
Seconder?
Yes, presiding member, just a clarification, and I'm prepared to support that, but in terms of, is there a suggestion that condition 3 potentially is going to change in terms of the term?
So I'm happy to foreshadow what that would be. I would seek to amend condition 3 to read, this approval is time limited to a period of 10 years, and then resource extraction is only permitted for 8 years unless amended.
Yeah, so thank you for the clarification. Presiding member, I'm happy to support that motion. I think it brings it into line with what is a standard arrangement for condition 1, limiting the approval, and I'm happy to support proposed changes to condition 3 as we deal with it later on.
I'm happy to put the two together because it seems that they're a pair.
Happy to do that.
So
would you like me to reread the amendment to condition 3? So if we move these on block, the amendment to condition 3, the condition would then read, this approval is time limited to an overall period of 10 years. Resource extraction is only permitted for a maximum of 8 years after the issue of the licence unless amended to the satisfaction of the Shire.
You with that?
Yeah,
okay. Right. Are there any further speakers on that amendment?
Just a bit of clarity. So what we're trying to align 1 and 3 with the same period of years. So if we take one, it says 10 years from the date of approval, the planning approval. And so it makes resource extraction is only permitted for 10 years from the planning approval, not the other thing. Is that how you're trying to align it?
No, what I'm trying to do is what has happened with this condition is they have confused or merged the validity period, which is essentially how long a planning approval is valid for. You need to commence development in line with the planning approval within a certain period for it to remain valid. If you don't include a validity period, 15 years from now, they could spontaneously start excavating. So what that is saying is this approval needs to be acted on within 4 years, otherwise it lapses and they have to reapply from the beginning. They've merged that into one condition that deals with the time-limited approval and the validity period of the approval. So I'm separating them out to say the validity period is 4 years, which means they have 4 years to start works before this approval lapses and we have to deal with it afresh. The condition 3 then deals with the overall time that they can excavate for, which is 10 years. And within that 10-year period, the actual excavation is 8 years and then the balance is used for rehabilitation. So it's separating out the validity period and the time-limited approval.
So I'm just kind of thinking that, say, for example, they get it in year 3, that leaves them only 7 years for the extraction. Is that how I understand it?
They're completely separate now.
Right.
So the 4 years is separate. They might start excavating within 6 months and then condition 1 falls away. Condition 3 will stand on its own. They're completely separate. There's the 10-year and there's the 4-year and they're not related at all.
Right. So the planning approval is for 4 years and the extraction is for 10. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. I've got a bit more clarity in how it was being.
All right. Are there further speakers on that amendment or those amendments? No. I'll put those amendments all in favour. Yeah, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Still with you.
Thank you. I would then like to delete condition 4 and include it as an advice note, please. Condition 4 talks about that rehabilitation of the land may occur at any time within the term of the approval.
Right. Seek a seconder for that. Arias, thank you.
Look, the way this condition is worded, it really is informative. It's explanatory. It's basically saying that you can start rehabilitation at any time. It's not really a condition. It's more of an advice note. So I think it's not suited as such.
No further comment.
Any discussion on that? Okay, I'll put that amendment all in favour. It's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'd like to amend condition 10 to make the condition specific to Hare Place and Capel roads only. And this aligns with the applicant's request, doesn't change the intent of the condition, just clarifies it.
Okay. Seconder. Tony Harris, thank you.
Look, the way the condition's currently worded means that haulage vehicles can only travel 40 k's on any road that's used in their journey. I don't think that's the intent of the condition. So this is just clarification.
All right. That's fine. Any further discussion on that amendment? No. Or I'll put the amendment all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
But I'd like to include a new condition requiring implementation of the dust management plan. The condition could read as follows. The dust management plan that forms part of this application, in brackets Appendix G, shall be implemented and adhered to at all times to the satisfaction of the Shire of Capel.
Do I have a second for that? Harris, thank you.
Thank you. Look, the reason, very simply, the report currently makes mention of a condition relating to a dust management plan, but no such condition was included in the set of conditions, and this is just reinforcing that requirement.
Second, no comment. Any discussion? No, I'll put that amendment all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Another 2 very quickly. I'd like to amend condition 14 to require that any interception of the water table be reported to the Shire within 24 hours instead of 48 hours.
That's in the
Condition 14.
14. Yes, 24. Okay. Seconder for that? Councillor McCleary, thank you.
And look, the reason is really just to create consistency between this and other approvals.
Councillor McCleary, a seconder? No comment? All right.
I'm okay with it.
I'll put that amendment. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last amendment, please, is condition 22. And that deals with the noise management plan. I would like to amend condition 22 to read as follows. The noise management recommendations contained within the acoustic report Appendix D shall be implemented and adhered to at all times to the satisfaction of the Shire of Capel.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
And look, the reason for that is the current condition references a noise management plan, but there is no separate plan. It's really just the recommendations in the acoustic.
Any further? Well, sorry.
No,
Any further discussion on that amendment? No. I'll put the amendment. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverting to the substantive, presiding member, I will support. The site is located in the mapped area of significant geological supplies as per SPP 2.4 and is a use that can be contemplated within the rural zone. It is already largely cleared, and the small amount of clearing proposed to accommodate the development will require a separate rigorous assessment and approval process through the relevant environmental agency. So I'm confident that element will be dealt with appropriately. Although there are sensitive receptors within 300 metres of the site, I'm satisfied that there will be no undue visual impact on these neighbours, and noise generated by the development is anticipated to be within the assigned noise levels or the assigned levels of the noise regulations, and this requirement is reinforced through relevant conditions of approval and advice notes. I'm also satisfied that the collaborative approach to traffic management and safety solutions has occurred between the Shire and the applicant, and that measures will be implemented to make the haulage as safe and as low impact as possible as they need to be for this operation. There have been a few environmental issues raised through the consultation process, but I am satisfied that these have been appropriately addressed in the Shire's report and via relevant conditions of approval. So I will support on that basis.
Thank you. Member Arias, a second.
Thank you, presiding member. As has already been indicated, the extractive industry proposal is discretionary within the rural zone, and therefore it is capable of approval. It's already been mentioned that the sites within basic raw materials policy, where the intent is to make resource available, and that is subject to other sort of planning environmental matters being addressed. And I'm satisfied that the current proposals addresses those planning and environmental matters, and therefore the proposal is consistent with that basic raw materials policy. In terms of the site itself, the work done indicates that the site's largely been cleared of native vegetation and is degraded or varying degrees of degraded condition. It raised the issue of the requirement through the submissions for clearing of native vegetation. It's a matter that the panel regularly has to deal with, and that's dealt with through separate legislation and due responsibility. So from that perspective, it's I'm satisfied that if there is a requirement, DUA can respond appropriately. In terms of the other amenity issues that have been raised through submissions, I'm satisfied that the noise assessment report and the acoustic assessment will manage that through the conditions that are proposed for approval. There's been some discussion, considerable discussion about traffic management, and I think the traffic management report and the discussions between the applicant and the Shire addresses those in an appropriate manner. So I'm comfortable to support the motion to approve. I would like to move a number of modifications to the approval. Condition 11, I'm happy with the intent of the condition, but the bulk of that, I think, should be in advice note. So I'm proposing that the condition be modified so that it reads, prior to the commencement of development, a rehabilitation management and monitoring plan shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the Shire, and then it should continue and implemented thereafter to the satisfaction of the Shire. And the second part of that would be a new advice note that would read, the rehabilitation management plan and monitoring plan shall be generally consistent with water quality protection note, etc., to groundwater level. So most of that, what is proposed as a condition, would be an advice note.
Right, thank you. I'm seeking a seconder for that. Yes, Member Page, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. As I've already alluded, I'm very happy with the intent of the condition, and it should be to the satisfaction of the Shire, which is standard wording, and the requirement for implementation, which the applicant indicated he's happy to achieve. Then the actual requirements are advisory, not conditions, and that should appropriately be an advice note.
Okay, the second.
No, I support the
Any further discussion on that amendment? No, I'll put the amendment. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Still with you.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. The other, through question time, I indicated some concerns about advice notes, and I'm going to suggest some modifications. So advice note 1, which really reads as a condition, consistent with the wording for advice note 3, I'm going to suggest it's modified. So it reads, the proponent is advised of their obligations under the EPA Act regarding clearing of vegetation on site. And then it should continue, the applicant is advised to liaise with the Department of Water Environment Regulation prior to clearing of any vegetation, and the words for further information, etc., that would remain.
Do a second. Right.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I probably provided a reason for it, but it is just to make clear that it is an advice note and it's subject to other legislation.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Any further discussion on that? I'll put that amendment. All in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm proposing delete advice note 2.
Yep.
And briefly, the reason for that is that it's covered in substantial detail in condition 14. So it's unnecessary duplication.
Seconder? Yes, Member Page, thank you. Did you explain it?
I have.
Further to add.
Nothing further to add. Any further discussion? No, I'll put that amendment to delete. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm also proposing advice note 4. For the same reason, it's based on confirmation from the applicant and the Shire. The noise bunds are actually shown on plans and included in the noise report, and therefore it's not necessary. It's adequately covered by condition 22, so no need to make further reference.
Thank you. Just a seconder for that. Yes, Page, thank you.
Nothing further to add.
Nothing further to add. Any further discussion on that? I'll put that amendment to delete advice note 4 in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Still with you.
No further.
No further. Any further on the substantive motion? Any further discussion? Councillor McCleary.
Yeah, it's probably more a question. I know that we had a bit of an exchange of notes with the authority about the links in the advice notes that were incorrect, and I'm understanding that they've been updated and the correct ones will appear in the outcome of this.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the substantive motion?
Yes, presiding member, if I can, and cutting it very fine to 11 o'clock. So thank you very much. Look, I just want to make the statement that I won't be supporting the application before the RDAP today. I am concerned about a number of reasons raised by the DPLH and the Department of Health in regards to the guideline statement 3 on the separation distances for the extractive industry. I think that the fact of the definition of those separations being the shortest distance between boundary to boundary hasn't been given due consideration in the planning of this particular development. And as stated by DPLH in their submission, it is clear that the applicant has done much of its assessment based off separation distances between sensitive receptors and the mining area itself rather than between the boundaries. And so on the basis of that, I'm not satisfied that the proponent has given due diligence to the separation buffers when assessing the impact of noise and dust. And so I can't support the application.
Thank you. Okay then. Well, I'm happy to support it. I understand Councillor Shiano's concerns. However, I believe that there is sufficient or there are sufficient mitigating measures to be put in place to try and, well, certainly minimise, if not eliminate, those issues that have been raised. This is obviously a resource that is important to this region, and not that ought to drive a planning approval, but I think it's important consideration. I believe that reading the number of reports, the environmental studies, the noise studies, the dust management plans, all those things, I think there is sufficient work that's been done and sufficient, I suppose, responsibility expressed by the applicant through those submissions that give me comfort to support this proposal. So I'm going to support it as amended. I'll go back then. Oh, sorry, Councillor McCleary, did you want to speak?
Yeah, look, just I'm kind of supporting Councillor Shiano in this matter, but some of the things with the acoustic planning that have been presented, I'm just wondering within the documentation there's sufficient just follow up to say, kind of prove that they work. So you're going within against the guidelines and you're saying, well, we'll establish these items that should stop it from happening. And I'd kind of like to see if this does get approved, that those things are reviewed and proven to work, and what are the avenues of the residents that are impacted if they're not working, and does it stop the site in such? Because we're saying, yeah, look, this is fine, and the reason that we're saying it's fine to go within those limitations, they've put these other measures in place. And I've worked on some big sites in my career where we've gone out and done acoustic and dust monitoring to prove that noise doesn't carry to the areas that were planned.
So are you looking for some additional measures or an amendment to?
I think there's amendment to prove that the acoustic and dust measurements work. I'm not sure how you write that into the documentation, or whether it's.
I guess there are there's a number of conditions, and a lot of those conditions are, they're around the satisfaction of the Shire. And if they're not being met, then there is action that the Shire can take to either remediate or stop those matters from affecting community.
Right. Yeah. I kind of thinking it's the Shire and the Department of Health. The Department of Health have set a level that they need to address, and I'm wondering whether there's enough control in this documentation to address that at that point.
I'm open to.
I'm trying to think of something, but a lot of it's on prior to commencement. And they are saying the management plans, but I'm not sure the management plan had a follow-up of monitoring of their own right to prove that systems are operating in the condition. They're probably a little dependent on someone putting their hand up, hey, I'm getting impacted, and what happens then. So I suppose what you're saying is you have the right to go to the responsible authority and chase that up. And I'm not whether there's sufficient in this for that to then go, okay, you've got to stop work till you fix that.
Well, I guess
it might be within the health regulations or something like that.
Yes.
I know I can't.
No, I think
Maybe.
yes.
Presiding member, just in relation to that, condition 25 does require an annual audit of the works, compliance audit. I would have thought, and that's to the satisfaction of the Shire, I would have thought that links it back to conditions of the approval, and the approvals addresses noise, dust management. So in my view, that's the right course of action, where there is an annual audit for compliance.
Yeah, I'm just having a read of it now, rereading it. It probably needs what happens in non-compliance. Is that a given that if you're non-compliant, then you need to go away and address that? And if it's in an annual audit, that's possibly too late because it's already impacted the residents in the area.
Well, I think the management plan would allow action to be taken at the time there is a breach.
Sounds like an assumption. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to the mover to wind up the debate.
Thank you, presiding member. I will then use that opportunity just to address Councillor McCleary's concern. I think that a proposal like this one, when there are quite specific acts and legislation that apply, the introduction of the dust management plan, if there's any evidence that that's not being adhered to at any point, and yes, it does rely on neighbours or others or the Shire to identify non-compliances, action can be taken immediately. It doesn't have to wait for that annual audit. Similarly, the noise regs are quite clear on the assigned noise levels, and if there's ever an inkling or a concern by one of the neighbours or the Shire that the noise levels are being exceeded, action can be taken immediately. So I think also noise levels particularly will change depending on environmental factors. So for an updated report to be done on something like this proposal, it'll be very difficult to pick that right time. Or I might suggest that the right time might be picked to confirm that all the noise levels are being adhered to. I think probably it is simpler to rely on that annual audit and to rely on other legislation for something like this to make sure that the right thing is being done rather than requiring a follow-up report. I'm just not sure for an extractive industry like this one that it'll be of any significant additional benefit. That's
okay, thank you. That ends the debate. I'll now put the motion as amended. All in favour? Against? That's carried 4-1. Thank you very much. And thank you to Councillor Shiano. I'm guessing that you are going to depart now.
Yes, thank you very much. I think that'd be more appropriate if I depart now. So appreciate your time this morning.
Good. Going to move for 5 minutes. Break.
Thank you.
Okay. Back on?
Okay.
Okay, resume meeting. Moving to the second item, which is lot 262, Quillup Road, North Boynup, extractive industry. And we have a presenter online in Kirsten Muir-Thompson. In support. It's Kirsten.
She is there. It just needs to. Kirsten, it's Ashley at the DAP Secretariat. Just confirming that you're there. If you just want to unmute and start your video.
Sorry, I had my video on and then I turned it off again, but is it working now?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just talking to the presenter.
Oh, right.
No.
Okay.
Kirsten, can you hear? And
Hi,
see us?
guys.
Thank you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Right, you would like to make your deputation, please?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this deputation. So my name's Kirsten. I'm from Ascendo, acting on behalf of JW Cross. I also have Paul and Tom here with me from JW Cross, who would be happy to answer any questions as we proceed through deliberations. So the applicant is proposing to extract sand from approximately a 16.36 hectare area within the site. In terms of the project specifications, the site has been identified as a regionally significant resource under the GBRS, and it's ideally located just outside of Bunbury. The application is made for a 5-year period only, which is sort of beneficial for residents and everyone else alike in terms of making any changes. The available volume of sand is approximately 500,000 cubes, and access to the property will be via Duquesne Road and Quillup Road. During peak operations, a maximum of 28 truck movements per day is proposed. That's the absolute maximum. This is going to be a small-scale operation when we're not looking at significant or large campaigns at all. So no blasting is proposed, and on-site machinery will be limited to a loader and/or excavator and a crushing and screening unit. In terms of the environmental considerations, the subject site is predominantly cleared pastoral paddock area and does contain some remnant native vegetation of varying density, ranging from completely degraded to good condition. Some of the vegetation does provide habitat for conservation significant fauna, and this will be addressed through the relevant environmental approvals, which will be sought in due course. The site does not contain any conservation significant wetlands or watercourses. In terms of visual impact, views of the subject site from Quillup Road and Duquesne Road are largely obscured by roadside vegetation, which is comprised of mature tree species. Trees will also be planted along the eastern boundary of the roads of Quillup Road to further obscure the subject site. In addition, rehabilitation of each stage will be undertaken progressively upon completion. In relation to groundwater, there'll be no interaction with groundwater, with a separation of at least 0.7 metres between the final contours and the maximum groundwater elevation. For noise, a specific environmental noise assessment has been undertaken for the proposed operations, and a compliance can be achieved at all sensitive receptor locations in accordance with the applicable regulatory criteria. In summary, the proposal is consistent with the Shire's local planning policy 6.2 extractive industries. whilst the proposal does entail the removal of some native vegetation, there is a significant portion in better condition to be retained and improved, which is considered to be effective in the context of minimising loss, whilst also ensuring a much needed sand resource is available, and that land can be used beneficially in future through appropriate rehabilitation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Kirsten. Panel members, are there questions of Kirsten or her colleagues there? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I just perhaps a clarification. In your submission, you do make reference to the site cleared of remnant vegetation. And probably a clarification, when you look at the photo in the RAR, what page is that? Page, I think 7? On page 12, sorry. That aerial suggests that there's still quite a bit of vegetation on site.
Yes, so there's obviously some cleared areas. The area's historically been used for agricultural activities, pastoral grazing. I think horses were also on the site historically as well. So that there is definitely some remnant native vegetation. That vegetation has been surveyed, so we know exactly what it is. It's just trees. It's, well, not just trees, but it is trees, mature trees. There's no understory. Understory is comprised of paddock grasses. So we definitely do need to go through DWR clearing permit process, and we'll also be consulting with the Commonwealth Government as well in terms of the referral requirements there.
Okay, so perhaps just without wanting to put words in your mouth, is that comment attributed to the excavation area? Is that what the intent is rather than the balance of the site? Because the aerial does suggest that the balance of the site has got reasonable vegetation over it.
It does, and that will be retained, yeah, and that will form part of an offset package as well, yeah.
Okay, and just presiding member, just a clarification, I think in your submission you indicate that you intend to refer the application under the PBC Act, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? No? Councillor McCleary.
Just getting to the right buttons, looking at other screens. The Department of Health, again, on this one, have indicated some concerns about the management of the site. And I'm just wondering whether you could make some comments on Department of Health's concerns and what the proponent intends to do to address them and how they will manage them going forward during the duration of the works.
Sure. So in relation to the EPA guidance statement number 3, which specifies separation buffers, that is a guidance statement. And within that document, it actually specifies that if site-specific studies are undertaken, those general separation distance may not be applicable. So we have gone ahead and done site-specific studies in terms of the acoustic report, given that it's fully acknowledged that there are residents in close proximity to the site. So we were very concerned about that. And we've looked at several scenarios in that acoustic assessment. And with the application of bunds, compliance can definitely be achieved. So we're satisfied that that's definitely something that can be achieved. In terms of wastewater on site, all wastewater will be trucked off site. Yeah, it'll just be treated like a typical construction site. There'll be no disposal of wastewater on site.
Further questions? Kirsten, do you think, and I couldn't see one, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you think there's an opportunity for an operations management plan, which it's possibly is encompassed in some of the conditions, but a plan where it's very clear what your operational requirements are, and something that the local community members can access, and I'll ask the staff this, of course, and where they have contact numbers if there is an issue, and there's a reporting process if there is a breach in some way.
Sure. We'd be more than happy to provide an operations management plan. I see that being sort of really the collation of the proposed management measures in the dust and the noise and the water, sort of bringing that all together and perhaps, like you say, putting it in a really sort of easily readable format for the general public. And in terms of providing contact numbers for any sort of queries or complaints or anything, I know the applicant is more than happy to do that. So yeah, would be more than happy to consider that.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of? No. Right, thank you very much for that. We'll move on. Just before I do that, I'll just want to note that there was a written deputation from Michael Titchman from Capel Land Care, formerly LCDC, against the proposal, and just for the benefit of the minutes, the members have said they are familiar with the material, so they will have read that presentation, deputation. So we'll just move now to Louise Hughes and Isabel Fry. Louise, probably you're happy just to take questions?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Questions of the staff? Yes,
Yeah.
Member Page.
Louise, I think you did answer some of these with the first application, so I won't go through all of them again, but I did want to, because it's a little different with this one. Again, condition 1 seems to merge the time limited approval and the validity period. Condition 3 in this one is quite specific about the 5 years. So already condition 3 seems to adequately cover the time limited approval. Are you happy for us to separate out as per the previous item?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. And then condition 5, condition 5 relates to the haulage route plan, and it's clear that you want that prior to commencement or issue of an extractive industry license. The crossover, I assume that also needs to occur before commencement and or the license?
Yep.
Okay. Just curious, why are the hours of operation for this proposal different to the previous one? Does the condition simply align with what the applicant asked for?
It does, yes.
Okay, great. And then condition 13 talks about haulage, no haulage should occur within 15 minutes of school bus times. And I wouldn't mind you explaining that a little bit more, please. Are we talking about the times that the school bus route that intersects with the haulage routes, or are we talking about that school window, whatever that is? Is it?
No, the bus companies can provide where the haulage route is the same as a school bus route. The bus operators can provide the specific time that the school bus will be on that route, and the 15 minutes is just a sort of safety buffer, really.
Yeah, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Presiding Member. I have probably the same comment about the footnote. Particularly footnote 1 and footnote 2. Would you have any particular concerns if it's supported that we modify footnote 1 as an advisory note rather than as a prescriptive condition?
No, I wouldn't. Thank you.
Okay.
From my point of view, Louise, I'm just going to the bottom of condition 14 and condition 23, and again, I think there's that difference in notification time. They're very similar. Those part of the condition 14 and condition 23. Is there some reason to have separated them like that? Or was it just were provided?
I think my response is the same that I did in the last one. Sorry.
Okay. And the other, I asked the applicants about an operations management plan. Do you have some sort of standard wording that you would use, which is around an operations management plan and them providing contact numbers and what the way they would go about dealing with a complaint?
We've certainly got examples here that I'd be happy to work with them on, yes.
Okay, so is there a condition that you have that
oh, I see. Sorry, I thought you meant the actual plan. Have we got
standard condition that?
Yes. We do have a standard condition for operational management plan. I don't have it before me at the moment, but I can find it.
If you would, thanks. And when we get to debate, I'll see if that can be incorporated.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No further questions? No, thank you. Oh, yes, Councillor McCleary.
Yeah, need to unmute. Similar to the last time, in the advice notes, there's some linkages in there that are incorrect. It's just they've changed the main thing. I was wondering if this one was updated with that same changes. They're mainly the ones from DER. They're now on the .gov site. So there are similar linkages to the previous item.
My apologies, I did not cross-reference the question in relation to the previous application with this one to ensure they were correct.
Yeah, so the same one. So advice note 1 and 4, I think, are the ones that have it's just in the first start of it, and they're basically the same as what you did for the previous item.
Yeah, that's fine for this one to match that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor McCleary?
I don't think so. Not of the responsible authority, no.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. We'll move on. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to the item. I'm going to seek a mover and a seconder for the recommendation as published. Is there a mover for that? Page, thank you. Seconder? Member Arias, thank you. Member Page.
Thank you, presiding member. I will support the recommendation, but again, I'd like to move a few amendments to the conditions before I talk with the substantive. First amendment is to condition 1 to change the validity period to 4 years.
Okay. And that's it?
Yeah.
Seconder for that? Thank you.
Look, the current wording of the condition appears to merge the validity period with the time limited approval. Validity period of 4 years aligns with the practice of most other local governments and the RDAP regulations. And in the case of this application, the time limited approval is quite clearly captured under condition 3, which states that resource extraction is only permitted for 5 years. So just to separate those two out and clarify condition 1.
Thank you.
No further.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, I'll put that amendment. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
And I'd like to delete condition 4 and include as an advice note, please.
Okay. Seconder for that? Yes, Mr. Arias, Member Arias.
The reason being the wording of the current condition is explanatory or advisory. It is better suited as an advice note.
Okay.
No further comment.
No further comments. I'll put that amendment. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you.
And then amend condition 14 to require any interception of the water table to be reported to the Shire within 24 hours and not 8 hours.
That's just okay. Seconder for that. Arias, thank you.
Just to create consistency.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All in favour? It's carried, thank you.
And lastly, inclusion of a new condition requiring implementation of the dust management plan. And the condition could read as follows: the dust management plan that forms part of this application, in brackets Appendix 8, shall be implemented and adhered to at all times to the satisfaction of the Shire.
Okay, is there a second for that? Yes, councillor McCleary, thank you.
Reason being the report makes mention of a condition relating to a dust management plan, but there is no such condition. So this is just tightening that up.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCleary, a seconder? No, I'll put that motion for an additional condition. All in favour? It's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. Reverting to the substantive, the site is located within the mapped area of significant geological flight as per State Planning Policy 2.4 and can be contemplated within the rural zone. Although there is more substantial clearing required to accommodate this development versus the one we've considered previously, the clearing and any potential impact of loss of cockatoo habitat will require a separate rigorous assessment and approval process through the relevant environmental agencies. I note that concerns were raised through consultation about the impact the number of haulage trips would have on residents in the area, and that the number of trips proposed was substantially reduced in response. This, together with the noise and dust management plans provided and reinforced through conditions of approval, give me comfort that impact on neighbours has been duly considered and will be appropriately managed. I'm also satisfied that the collaborative approach between the applicant and the Shire in relation to access to the site will ensure that access to and from the site is as safe as it needs to be. There have been a few environmental issues raised through the consultation process, but I am satisfied these have been appropriately addressed in the Shire's report and by relevant conditions for overviews.
Thank you. Moving to the seconder.
Thank you, presiding member. Yes, I will be supporting the motion to approve. As has already been indicated, the sites within the strategic control area, strategic minerals and basic raw materials under the council's planning scheme. It's also within the basic raw materials SPC area. So the intent is clearly to make available important resources for extraction subject to the normal planning and environmental, which I believe in this case have been addressed. There's been significant discussion in the submissions around the vegetation being removed, and in reviewing the actual application, the site's approximately 60 odd hectares, 16 hectares proposed for extraction. So 75% of the site is not subject to the current extraction proposal. The applicant in its advice has indicated that the majority of that vegetation is either completely degraded or good condition. In terms of the amenity issues, I'm satisfied that the noise plan and the acoustic assessment provide sufficient guidance to be able to support it and to satisfy us that measures can be put in place to minimise potential impacts. Probably should have recognised in the previous application that we do have a comprehensive submission from Capel Land Care, which raises a number of environmental issues which are within the jurisdiction of other authorities, not the DAP. And the role of the DAP is to determine proposed development in the context of planning framework, and in particular clause 67 of the deemed provisions. And in that context, I think the current application meets those requirements. The applicant has already indicated that the proposal will be referred under the EPBC Act and potentially to DUA in terms of clearing, and it's those matters are for consideration under separate jurisdiction and therefore will be addressed appropriately. So I'm not suggesting that we are ignoring that, but they are matters that fall within separate jurisdictions and appropriately should be handled by that. So on that basis, I'm prepared to support the current motion to approve. I'd like to move a couple of modifications or motions, change conditions. First one is condition 11, and what I'm suggesting is, once again, I support the intent of the condition, but it's a substantial part of the condition is in fact advisory, and I'd like to move to change the condition so that it reads prior to the commencement of development, rehabilitation management and monitoring plan shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the Shire. The full stop, and then it should read the rehabilitation management plan, monitoring plan shall be implemented thereafter to the satisfaction of the Shire. So that's condition 11. Then the balance of what was proposed will be a new advice note. So we'll read the rehabilitation management and monitoring plan shall be generally consistent with etc., as per the current wording in that condition.
Are you condition 11 or condition 10?
Condition 11. Or I got the conditions wrong. Okay. Clearly looking at the wrong one. My apologies. Okay. I'll withdraw that motion then.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Still with you.
Yes. In which case, I would propose modifying advice note 1. So it's consistent with advice note 3. So it should read the proponent was advised of its obligations under the Environmental Protection Act regarding clearing of native vegetation on site. And then the balance of that continues. The applicant is advised to liaise with the Department of Water in relation to clearing, etc., etc.
Okay, I'll take a seconder for that amendment. Member Page, thank you. Any further discussion on that? I'll put that amendment. All in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you.
And the next motion is in relation to advice note 2, and I propose to delete that as I believe it's covered by condition 22. Sorry. No, got that wrong too. Sorry, condition 23.
So to delete, is there a seconder for that? Yes, Member Page, thank you. Any further discussion on that? Just duplication. All right, all in favour of the deletion of that? That's carried, thank you.
Nothing further providing that.
Nothing further. Councillor McCleary, did you wish to?
I do, thank you. My concern in the whole of this is the separation distance to the receptors along survey. 100 metres to the nearest properties is or impact areas is concerning to me. I don't feel that the applicant has addressed those concerns to satisfy myself and the community. So that reason I won't be voting for this application.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Look, if the officers are there and if they've got that suggested, Louise, there you go. If an operations management plan condition, do you have a suggestion for that?
I do. How would you like me to just read it out?
Yes, please.
Okay. Prior to commencement or the issue of an extractive industry licence, the proponent shall prepare an operational management plan for the extraction period to the satisfaction and specification of the Shire of Capel that includes, but is not limited to, hours of operation, contact details for site managers, complaints management procedure, waste management, occupational health and safety, noise, vibration and dust management, drainage management, site traffic management, environmental management, and the approved operational management plan shall be implemented at all times throughout the extraction period to the satisfaction of the Shire of Capel.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Before I speak to it, I'll seek a seconder for that. Is there a seconder for that operations management plan? Thank you, Member Harris. Look, while it doesn't necessarily solve, I think the concerns that Councillor McCleary's got, I think it would give more comfort to those people living nearby that there is action they can take and a process by which they can take that action, and a process for the applicant to consider as well. And I think it just alerts the applicant to be more keen on some of the actions that they need to be mindful of when they're extracting the sand. So I'm recommending that amendment to the panel. Seconded.
Thank you. Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm happy to support that. I think it provides a much more robust approach to potential impacts and management of those by the applicant, and provides an opportunity for the Shire to respond to any issues perhaps more rapidly through an operational management plan.
Further speakers on that amendment? No? All right. I shall put the amendment. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Look, I am prepared to support this. And as I said before, I understand Councillor McCleary's concerns. However, I think with that amendment in place and the fact that the reduction in the number of truck movements, it's a fairly small operation. And I think that with the bunding and the dust mitigation measures, which would help minimise any of those potential impacts to an acceptable level. If not, then obviously the management plan comes into play. So I won't go over the environmental stuff. That's all been addressed by other members here. I'm happy that it does fall within the planning framework, and therefore I'm happy to support it. So back to the mover to wind up the debate. Nothing further. I'll put the motion as amended. All in favour? Against? That's carried 3-1. Just to wind up the meeting, there's no forms 2, there's no section 31 in other business. SAT applications and DAP matters are listed on the website. I'll close the meeting at 11:41 and thank everyone for your attendance. Thank you to the staff, Councillor McCleary, panel members and the support staff here today. Thank you very much.